Hello and welcome to another episode of Down the Pipeline. I know it's been a very long time. I think it's been about 3 months since the last one, but we're back, and we're gonna keep going back with the weekly videos for this, and help keep you informed about upcoming releases or Kickstarters that are going on that you may or may not have already heard about. Uh, this week I've got four Kickstarters that I thought were really interesting. Admittedly, also though, the RPG Kickstarters going on right now, there's very few of them. Most of them, there's a lot of board games, so it was very slim picking. So if I missed one, and you're in charge of it, or you saw it, you thought it'd be really cool for other people to know about it, just shoot me a message, and I'll see if I can feature it next week. So we'll just get right into it. And the first one is actually one that probably most of you already know about, and it is the World of Darkness Dark Eras Prestige Edition Kickstarter. For those of you who don't know, the World of Darkness still exists under the Onyx Path, and the New World of Darkness this is a New World of Darkness Kickstarter. The premise of this Kickstarter is to make a Prestige Edition for this book they're already making, but this book will actually add background information in this form of previous eras, historical eras for a lot of these game lines. Because one of the driving features, it seemed, of New World of Darkness was to step away from the huge amount of meta plot that Old World of Darkness had and step into this world where the books were not independent from one another, but they didn't require that your players read every book, and as you running a game, it didn't really require you to read every book to run a game that really meshed with the world really well. And in the long run, that worked for New World of Darkness really well in some forms. In others, though, it left a big hole where there was all this like information and things existed, but with no real context for why, or very much information about where they came from and where they arose, like why there's 5 factions for vampire and things like that. And so this book seeks to fix all of that by featuring at least one historical era for every New World of Darkness game that is out thus far. That means even Mummy and Demon of the Descent get them, as well as Vampire the Requiem, second edition, in first edition, really, because as far as I'm aware, they're the same lore bases. And so it's really cool because I really enjoyed Old World of Darkness's lore. I found it really obnoxious that, before I ran a Werewolf the Apocalypse game, I ended up reading somewhere around 20 books outside of the core, because, with the tribe books and, this, that, and the other. Which is really obnoxious in the sense that had I not been able to buy each one of them for like $5, $6, that would have been a huge buy-in for a game line that I, played for a year. But I really enjoyed that because I felt it made the world very living and realistic. Whereas New World of Darkness, what I've read, there's a lot of elements that I'm just kind of asking why this is here and why this exists, with the exception of Mummy the Curse, which I love, and I feel they do a really good job of explaining it both in system and in lore. So me personally, I'm really excited to see this because there's a lot of really interesting settings that they're creating, with a lot of oddities. I mean, I think there's Neolithic Mage has been added. This Kickstarter has actually already been funded. They're at $84,000, sorry, of their $40,000 goal. And they still have 7 days to go, so there's still a lot of room for expansion and new stuff. And there's a lot of really good reward tiers. So, for example, if you're only interested in Mage, or only interested in Mummy or Demon or whatever, or maybe only have $5 to chip in, you can buy in and get all the information that's relevant to your preferred game line for $5 as a PDF, which is really cool because some of us really don't care about some of the other New World of Darkness lines, or some of us may only have $5. So I think they did a really good job, and I encourage you to check it out. We're going to change gears, and that's really the only really big game Kickstarter going on. These other ones are lesser known, and but they're really cool, and I also encourage you to check out these other ones. The next one is actually a product from Triple Ace Games called Hellfrost Matters of Faith. Now, Hellfrost is a game put out by Triple Ace Games that runs on the Savage World system. And they put out a couple of supplements. There's a bestiary, there's campaign setting, there's regional guides, and this, that, and the other. There's actually, I had never actually heard of Hellfrost until this past week when I found this Kickstarter. And what's really cool about this book is its focus so heavily on the obviously, as the title implies, matters of faith, but how it does it is it approaches it in the sense of trying to make this religion feel real. It looks like it details a lot of cults, inhuman gods, things like that. It goes into a lot of detail. I think it's 140 some pages, and all of it is just chock full of religious creations. And for me, this matters a lot because I found that religion can play a really important, cool, interesting role in world design and in campaign development. Even if none of your characters are religious, like in the sense that you've got a cleric or a paladin or whatever, religion could play a role in a character's life, but without any mechanical elements. And so having more information about it can really affect how a character does anything. I mean, this book details even, I think it's like 70 some odd religious festivals. And that's something I've always felt is missing from games, is you'll have all these religions, or you'll have a monotheistic religion, or you'll have a polytheistic religion, or, all these different styles. And you could even have, a mixed match of both if you've got multiple religions in your world. But most of the time what I see is people, they just have them, but they don't have any religious significance in the sense that there's no festivals. It seems that they're typically painted in very singular dimensioned, if that's even the right word, way, in that, they're of the death god, they're just evil. There's no real characterization of it and how it would really affect the lives of the people around them, or why, these people would have chosen to worship the death god. And this book seems to address all of that and put it in a very realistic context that gives the world this feeling of realism. Now, given I haven't read the book, obviously because the Kickstarter is still going on, this is merely gathering from the video and the Kickstarter material and extrapolating, kind of taking a look through that information. So if somehow it's not, which I find it very hard to believe that that's not what's there, seeing so they've got 70 some odd festivals detailed in their book. It's also been funded. It's at 3,000 euros, I believe is the symbol, almost 4,000 out of their 2,500, and they also still have 7 days to go. And I encourage you to check it out if you enjoy Savage Worlds, or you enjoy Hellfrost, or you just want to kind of look at something. I might back it just for the religious information to kind of figure out how I want to do stuff in my own worlds and my own games and things like that. So next we move on to something that is a Mask of Nyarlathotep companion for the Call of Cthulhu adventure of the same name. And this is a bit unique. I found this really cool based on, one, what it is, but a lot of why I picked this one to be featured is because of the reason it exists. So, the Mask of Nyarlathotep is a huge, sprawling campaign for Call of Cthulhu. I think it features some six-ish cities, 7 cities across the world. You start in New York and end in, you can end wherever, but you end in, I think Shanghai is the last one. you go everywhere in between. So it's this really cool, really huge campaign. And this companion is a compilation of information and tips from the people at Yog-Sothoth.com, which is a site that's been going on for a while that focuses on Lovecraftian role playing games and things like that. And it's actually really cool. I've been there a couple times and I've listened to some of their podcasts and live plays. And this book seeks to act as a instruction guide, more or less, to running that, including tips, tricks, ideas for investigators, some pre-built investigators, some generalized expanded information to help keepers run the game. And so generally, like, I wouldn't support something like this. I mean, yeah, it's really cool, but really, what can they offer that I can't ascertain from the actual adventure campaign myself? But other people might want more stuff, or it looks like this has more information. But the thing that's really cool about this is the reason for this Kickstarter is to create the companion, but the companion's reason for being in existence is to help the web server for Yog-Sothoth.com pay the bills for hosting the server. So this isn't some, oh, I'm going to start a company and, profit, which there's nothing wrong with that. But the entire idea of this is to help support a community of Lovecraftian role playing, which I think is just a phenomenal thing. I mean, this was designed by their community to support their community. I think that's just really great to see that, a community pulling together to help itself. So, I mean, there's really not much to it past that. It's just tips and tricks and a guide that you could probably, gauge on the internet, but all collected in one very helpful place. With some additional information and I believe some extrapolation where the book is a little bit weak in its information. But that's the big thing, is that I think at least all the profits go to helping their site, which I think is great. And then finally is they are funded by a long shot. They're at 24,000 euros out of their 6,000 goal, and they still have 17 days to go. So there's a lot of stuff that could happen. And finally, we've got a project from Fat Dragon Games, which is Wilderness Adventure Game Terrain. Now, a lot of people that I've talked to kind of turn their nose up at some of the game terrain, but I think it's immensely helpful. I feel it brings a lot to a table by helping players visualize the battle terrain or even the world that they're in if they're adventuring. I mean, you could just throw some of this out there just to kind of show the players, the lay of the land roughly. And I think it's great. And but the problem with all of the terrain and everything that I've always encountered is it's usually gratuitously expensive to buy terrain from because it's typically for war games or other miniature style games. So terrain is expensive. I mean, especially if you're just going to use it for your game, and most gamers are on a budget, so they can't really justify throwing down a couple $100 here and there to buy terrain that they may only use once. But Fat Dragon Games has done something that I think is just ingenious. They have made it out of mostly like cardstock. So what you do is you buy a PDF packet from them, and then you can print it out yourself and do little arts and crafts and bend paper and slide things together and make the terrain. I think this is great because, one, obviously because you're doing the printing, it's the budget, like, it gets significantly cheaper, because if you can find ways to cut printing yourself, it's cheaper. Because paper, it's cheaper than buying it out of resin or something like that. But then also, you only bought one packet, and that packet may have only had 3 trees in it, but then you can just keep printing trees, and you can have as many trees as you want. If they get wet, they get ruined, whatever, print more. And I think that's just great because it adds so much to a table to have that terrain, and they've done it in such a very affordable way that really anyone really can. I mean, I say anyone, but so I think it's great. and they've blown past their funding. They're at 37,000 out of $1,000 goal, and they've got 3 days to go. So there's still time to jump in and get in some of these packets. Pick up a couple extra and get started gaming with terrain. And I mean, I'm under the impression that's at least strong enough to support miniatures, because then otherwise there'd be no point for it. So I encourage you to check it out, especially if you're running games where you do use some tactical combat. I know a lot of people use Theater of the Mind. I'm kind of in between. I like both. But even if you're Theater of the Mind, I mean, having terrain can just be helpful to create an atmosphere on your table. But I'll post a link to all of these down below, and I'm not involved in any of them. So if somehow any one of these goes south, can't don't blame me. I mean, I only tell you about opportunities. I don't guarantee them. But until next week, take it easy.